Chicago Bears Now is presented by Manscaped. Going to do some Easter egg hunting this weekend? Well, clean up your Easter eggs downstairs with the best men's grooming products. It's Manscaped, promo code Bears20 to get 20% off. Coming up on today's show, we have an updated Bears top 30 NFL draft visits tracker. Bears have been bringing several prospects to Hallis Hall. A few of these guys we'll talk about don't count against the top 30 visits they get because they're considered local. Every team gets to bring in local prospects that don't count against the top 30, so we'll cover a couple of those guys as well. Before we get to some of these prospects, remember the Bears have 10 draft picks right now, including 4 in the top 64. They have number 9, number 53, 61, and 64. Then they have 103 and 133 there in the 4th round, couple of 5th round picks at 136 and 148, and then 218 and 258 to round out this haul for Ryan Poles. We saw him trade a lot during day 3 of the draft last year, so would not be surprised if that happened again. Before we get to these prospects, share this video on Twitter. Click that share button and click Twitter. And then before you post it and send out the tweet, tag me in the tweet at HGramNFL for a retweet. Everyone that tags me in the tweet will get a retweet. Also, first 30 people that share this video will get a follow back on Twitter. So if you follow me and I don't follow you back, this is your chance. First 30 shares, get a follow back on Twitter. All right, let's get to these prospects, these top 30 visits. Tyree Wilson, the edge out of Texas Tech. He visited the Bears this past week, and I like Wilson a lot. I know he hasn't been able to do a ton of the pre-draft stuff because he's been recovering from a foot injury, but he was recently cleared and should be doing some private workouts for some teams. 14 sacks over the past couple of years, 27.5 tackles for loss. I like Tyree Wilson quite a bit. I think he would be a great fit, and if he's available at number 9, I got to be honest, it's going to be tough to say no. We'll talk Paris Johnson and Broderick Jones together here as they're both very strong left tackle options for Chicago, whether it's at number 9 or maybe in a slight trade down scenario. You compare their PFF numbers here real quick, and Paris Johnson grades out better as a run blocker. Broderick Jones grades out better as a pass blocker. I think Jones is a little more raw than Paris Johnson is, but maybe has a little bit of a higher ceiling. I think he's slightly more athletic, but both of these guys fit the bill of what Ryan Poles wants in an offensive tackle. Athletic, has the length, can move, all of that stuff that you want. They're just not quite finished products yet. And I think that's what's going to be interesting when the Bears pick at number 9. Do they want closer to a guaranteed, like, instant impact blue chip player? Or do you take the tackle to help protect Justin Fields, even though it may not be the higher graded player on your board? I'll find that very fascinating for Ryan Poles because I think sticking to best player available is a very good strategy for where the Bears are in their rebuild right now. Pick an offensive tackle. Who would you rather have out of these two guys? If it's Paris Johnson, type PJ. If it's Broderick Jones, type BJ. Let me know who you would rather have down in the comments section below out of these two tackles. Next up is Jalen Carter, who the Bears obviously talked to him at his pro day. That did not go well as he was overweight and couldn't get through workouts. They also brought him in for a draft visit. As of filming this video, I have not been made aware of how that visit went. A lot of those things are kept under wraps for a reason by teams. We know the talent. I mean, we've talked about it. He might be the most talented pure player in this draft. It's very possible. But at the end of the day, we don't know how the Bears feel about him. We know he visited Hallis Hall this past Monday, but is he a viable option? Do the Bears think they can trust him? This is Ryan Poles' first round pick. Keep that in mind here, and he's someone who believes in building rosters through the NFL draft, so you got to get this pick right. Sure, Jalen Carter might be the best player in this draft, but is he someone you can trust week in and week out, day in and day out to be a face of your franchise? I don't know. I don't know him well enough. That's up to the Bears to do those evaluations and do that analysis. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, who they've obviously been connected to, reports out there that the Bears love him, but obviously the Bears have a three-headed monster of DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, and Chase Claypool. Mooney and Claypool on the final year of the rookie deal, so there's a thought they could go receiver at number 9 still. Obviously, JSN has big-time potential, right? He was awesome in 2021 with 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns. Didn't play hardly at all this past season. But I think during the pre-draft process, he's kind of put any doubts in terms of injuries and stuff like that to rest. So I think teams are pretty comfortable. I think the one thing you have to consider here is how many snaps can he give you on the outside? Because pretty much in college, he was strictly a slot guy. Can he win on the outside at all? I'm not too concerned by that because I think he can be really good in the slot, and most teams play their top receivers in the slots, but I do think that is something to consider if you are the Chicago Bears. Today's show is sponsored by Manscaped. I love the Lawnmower 4.0. Going to keep those Easter eggs downstairs nice and trimmed, if you will. They got a deal for you that you can't pass over this Easter season. See what I did there? They've got all the tools to give you the beautifully decorated eggs of your dreams. It's the Lawnmower 4.0. Clean things up, advanced skincare technology, no razor tug, no burn. It's a wireless, waterproof system here that you can use in the shower. It's got a long battery life. You can charge it on the wireless station here as well. Manscaped.com, promo code BEARS20. Get yourself feeling sweet as candy by going to Manscaped.com and using that promo code BEARS20. You're never going to be feeling better. They're constantly improving their products. The Lawnmower 4.0, the best ball hair trimmer on the planet. Make those Easter eggs nice and smooth this Easter season. Go to Manscaped, promo code BEARS20. Okay, let's keep it rolling here. Jaelyn Duncan, the offensive tackle out of Maryland, who, I got to be honest, the evaluations of this guy are all over the place. I will say this. You look at his relative athletic score, MathBomb, great follow on Twitter, at MathBomb. They do all these kind of testing numbers and compile them into a system here. Green is elite. He's got a lot of green. He's very athletic. And I wouldn't worry about him just being 308 there because Ryan Poles likes lighter offensive linemen, guys that can move around. He's very much a boomer bust prospect, though. He's still a little bit raw. He needs more reps to be a high-level player. Doesn't use his hands that well. That's something consistently I read from draft evaluators, and you see it on tape also. The technique needs to improve. But the athletic profile is there. Could he come in and compete for that right tackle job as a rookie? I think he could. Played more left tackle in college, so be very interested to see where he goes in the draft. Tyrique Stevenson, a guy who's been moving up draft boards, very athletic. I think this is the type of corner that Matt Eberflus would love. He can press. He'll get in your face, and he's got the makeup speed where if he's beat off the line, he can make up that gap. Really good player at Miami the last couple of years. Committed to Georgia initially before transferring. Gave up just 3 touchdowns in coverage last year, 7 breakups, couple of picks. Could sneak into round 1, early mid-day 2 perhaps. It's going to be interesting to see how these corners go because it's a very good cornerback draft class, and I'll be intrigued if the Bears are in the mix for one of them. Next up is Ricky Stromberg, the Arkansas center. I like this kid. There's a lot of people that think he could fall to the 4th round. You know, you've got that first pick in round 4, which, remember, that's very valuable because you hold the first pick to start one of the days of the draft, right? That's also true, would have been true to start the draft. They obviously traded the pick, but you go to sleep Friday night, you've got all of Friday and Saturday morning before you make that decision to start round 4. If he's there at 103 to start the 4th round, I'd be comfortable taking him. I think this kid has starting center potential. I think he could start as a rookie if you need him to. I think he still has a good chance of going on day 2, but if he's there in the 4th round, it's a no-brainer at 103 in my opinion. 64 is probably too high to start round 3, but, you know, maybe in a trade-down scenario later in the 3rd round, he'd be pretty good as well. He can anchor this offensive line at center, has the athleticism, kind of that tenacity you want out of your center as well. I'm a big fan of this kid. Should the Bears draft a center? Type Y for yes, N for no. Another reason you could go Stromberg here is you don't necessarily need him to start. So you get him in the 4th round, kind of treat 23 as a redshirt year. You've got Lucas Patrick and Cody Whitehair, a couple of guys who can hold it down at center this year. Then maybe he takes over the next year. But let me know if you think the Bears should draft a center or not. Zach Charbonnet, the only running back up to this point that has taken a top 30 visit with the Bears. I find that interesting. Todd McShay recently mocked Charbonnet to Chicago as well. Had a productive year for the UCLA Bruins. In just 10 games, had almost 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. Has played in multiple systems. And when he was at Michigan, he was more of a downhill runner. At UCLA, obviously they ran a lot of kind of read option, zone read schemes with Chip Kelly's offense and quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson there. So he's played in some different offenses. He can run downhill. He's got enough speed to get the edge. I think he needs to improve a little bit as a pass catcher, but 7 yards per carry, he was very productive in college. Gervon Dexter Sr., the defensive tackle out of Florida, more of a one-tech, so I just wonder where the Bears are in their rebuild. Do you want to take a one-tech on day 2? I don't know. It's just not as valuable of a position for this defense and really for most defenses. He's a good player, but to me, he fits more of a team that doesn't have a ton of needs, and they're like, oh, let's get this guy who can help stop the run and really shore up that front 4. I think 3-tech and edge has got to be a bigger priority, but the Bears have visited with him, so that is notable. Before we get to some more guys, here are the local visits, guys that don't count against the top 30. Eddie Taimawa Adebaware, the defensive line out of Northwestern. He's been rising up boards. Mel Kiper thinks he could go top 15. I think that's a little nutty, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went round 1. Jaden Reed has had a good pre-draft process, great Senior Bowl. I think he could sneak into day 2. He's kind of in that Stromberg range for me. If he's there to start round 4, I love the value. 64, though, probably too early. Aiden O'Connell, the Purdue quarterback, I think he's an intriguing developmental guy that could have long-term backup potential. Xavier Valade, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. He's got an interesting athletic profile. Jeremy Cooper, the offensive guard out of Cincinnati. Also, I know the Bears have talked with Penn State center Juice Scruggs. He's not considered a top 30 visit guy, so I'm not sure if that just hasn't been confirmed, but I know for a fact there's interest there. And Peter Skronsky as well. They were at his pro day, but maybe they haven't taken an official top 30 with him. I think he would also qualify as a local visit as well. All right, subscribe to the channel. Sub for Bears dubs. You want more dubs this football season for the Bears. Got to get more than 3-14 this past year. Let's get more dubs. Hit that subscribe button. Don't jinx it. Let's get this team trending in the right direction. All right, keep it rolling here. Steve Avila, the offensive lineman for TCU. They saw him very close up. Bears offensive coordinator Luke Getsy was one of the head coaches at the Senior Bowl, so they talked to him there. He's taken a top 30 with the Bears. He might have been their first top 30 visit, to be honest. What I like about this kid is a couple of things. One, he can play all 3 interior spots. He even played some right tackle in college. Now, I don't think he'll do that in the pros, but it just goes to show where, the flexibility, right? Center, right guard, left guard. He can play all those spots. He was a team captain in college and willingly moved to guard his senior year when a transfer came in and played center, and he was a team captain and had a hell of a year and might sneak into round 1. So I think he's either the best or second best interior lineman in this draft. Would he fall to 53 for the Bears? I doubt it. You'd probably have to move up earlier in round 2 to go get him. Tyler Scott, the Cincinnati wide receiver who, former running back, switched to receiver in the last couple of years and has really played well. I mean, he's still learning the position, but I think he's got huge upside, has intriguing athleticism. Jonathan Mingo, the Ole Miss, wide receiver, 6'2", ran a 4.46, so he's got that kind of vertical profile that you like. Dontavian Wicks, the Virginia wide receiver. This is an interesting guy. He's also about 6'2", has some interesting size. Really good and really productive 2021 season. Not so much this past year. Also had some injury problems. Only played in 8 games. But you look at what he did in 21. 1,200 yards, 21 yards per catch, 9 touchdowns, a long of 77. A big play weapon. Virginia had an interesting couple of years where in 21, Brennan Armstrong was one of the most productive quarterbacks in the country. He fell off a cliff in 22, and Dontavian Wicks suffered because of that. Dylan Horton, the TCU defensive lineman. If you guys remember the Fiesta Bowl, which was this crazy game between Michigan and TCU, he had 4 sacks against the Wolverines, and I really think that put him on scouts' kind of radars. He was probably going to be a late, 6th, 7th round guy, but people were like, whoa, this guy is just getting off the edge and beating this Michigan offensive line. That's considered one of the best in college football. Had 10.5 in total, 4 against Michigan, like I said. He's got a big-time motor. He's a little bit older. He's 24, 6-year college player, but I think is an early day 3 rotation pass rusher that could play some 3-tech or edge. I think he's an intriguing player. Shout out your favorite college football team. I'm a TCU alum, so that's my squad. What's your squad? I know a lot of Big Ten folks here on Bears Now, so let me know who you're repping on Saturdays in the fall. Few more here. Carl Brooks, the Bowling Green defensive lineman. I think one of the more intriguing players in this draft. The production and grade from PFF especially, but his production as well that he had this past year is pretty incredible. I mean, 18 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, but a couple of things to consider here. One, he played in the MAC, the worst FBS Division I conference in college football, so he's playing against lesser competition. And 2, Not a great athlete, kind of a tweener, but had a big Senior Bowl. Again, the Bears were there, so, I think he's probably projects as just a rotation defensive lineman that can play a little edge, a little three-tech. Okay, Payne Durham, the Purdue tight end, someone who wasn't really on my radar. Then I looked into this kid a little bit. Really productive player, man. Put up some decent numbers for Purdue. Good red zone option, 56 catches, 560 yards, 8 touchdowns. The depth at tight end in this draft really is phenomenal. I mean, you've got kind of the frontline guys, of course, with Michael Mayer, Darnell Washington, Dalton Kincaid, Musgrave, a couple other guys. But then you get later in the draft, Laporta as well. You got guys like Payne Durham. I like, I forget the kid's name out of Clemson. I think Davis Allen, I think's his name. He's an interesting athlete. So you can find tight ends in this draft that I think can contribute. Desmond Alexander, the defensive lineman out of Pittsburgh. He had 5.5 sacks this past year. He's kind of a tweener as well. Jordan McFadden, the offensive lineman out of Clemson. Played tackle in college, but he's 6'2", right around 300. I'm not sure he plays tackle in the NFL, but a lot of experience. Maybe he's just one of your, 6th, 7th, 8th offensive lineman guy who can play multiple spots and plug in and play if there is an injury. Name your top 2023 NFL draft sleeper. Who is it? Certainly the Bears have brought in some guys that could be some sleepers in this year's draft. Let me know who that guy is for you. All right, that's it for today's video. Appreciate all the love and support. Again, if you share this on Twitter and tag me, I will retweet you. First 30 folks that do that will get a follow back on Twitter as well. So be sure to do that if you want me to follow you guys back on social media. I'm Harrison Graham. We'll see you guys soon here on the channel.